At the wedding, the billionaire swore to keep his distance until her kiss broke him. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to the main character. The wedding hall looks exactly like it should. White roses line the aisle, crystal lights glow overhead, a string quartet plays softly, measured, perfect. Everything about this moment has been planned down to the inch and the second, except the truth. At the altar stands Alexander Cole, a self-made billionaire, the kind of man whose name moves markets and silences boardrooms. His tuxedo fits flawlessly, his posture is straight, his face is calm, too calm. As the officiant speaks, Alexander does not listen to the words about love or devotion. His eyes remain forward. His mind is elsewhere, fixed on one sentence, one rule, one line he memorized long before today. This is not a marriage. This is a contract. Beside him stands his bride, Emily Hart. Her dress is elegant but simple, chosen carefully to meet expectations without drawing unnecessary attention. Her hands are steady, but her breathing is not. She feels the weight of hundreds of eyes, of whispered judgments, of a world she never planned to enter. She does not look at the guests. She looks at Alexander, and finally, he leans closer. His voice is low enough that only she can hear it. "Remember what we agreed on," he says quietly. "We keep our distance." The words land harder than she expects. Emily nods, just once. The movement is small, almost invisible, but it costs her more than anyone realizes. This wedding saved her family from financial collapse. It paid hospital bills. It bought time. That was the deal. No emotions, no expectations, no mistakes. The officiant asks for the vows. Alexander repeats his lines smoothly, confidently, as if he is signing a merger instead of promising a lifetime. Emily follows, her voice clear, her expression controlled. Applause fills the hall, cameras flash. The guests smile, satisfied with the illusion. From the outside, it is perfect. Inside, it is empty. Moments later, they step aside as the ceremony reaches its final tradition. The officiant smiles warmly. "You may now kiss the bride." The room holds its breath. Alexander hesitates, just for a fraction of a second, long enough for Emily to notice, long enough for something unspoken to flicker between them. This kiss was in the contract, a formality, a performance, nothing more. He leans in, careful, restrained, already planning the distance he will reclaim the moment it is over. Emily rises on her toes, and then she kisses him. Not the way the contract outlined, not the way the cameras expect. Her lips are soft, uncertain, human. There is no strategy in it, no calculation, just a quiet, fragile honesty that slips through the cracks in his armor. Alexander freezes. Something inside him shifts. A memory, maybe, or a feeling he buried years ago and swore never to touch again. The kind that weakens men, the kind that ruins empires. For one dangerous second, he forgets the rules. The applause grows louder, unaware that everything has already changed. And Alexander Cole, the billionaire who built his life on control and distance, realizes too late that one kiss has just broken the one promise he was certain he could keep. The kiss ends. Applause swells around them, loud and celebratory, but Alexander Cole barely hears it. He steps back first, reclaiming the space between them as if distance itself is oxygen. His face settles into calm again. Practiced, controlled. Whatever cracked inside him seconds ago is sealed behind his eyes. Emily feels it immediately. The warmth is gone. The wall is back. They turn to face the guests, hands linked only because protocol demands it. Cameras flash. Smiles are exchanged. To everyone watching, this is the beginning of a powerful marriage. To them, it is the beginning of the rules. Later that night, the limousine glides through the city streets, lights blurring past tinted windows. The silence inside the car is thick, not awkward, but deliberate. Alexander sits on one side, posture straight, gaze fixed ahead. Emily sits opposite him, hands folded in her lap, her wedding dress carefully gathered so it does not wrinkle. No one speaks. Finally, Alexander breaks the silence, his voice even, businesslike. "Tonight was for appearances," he says. "You handled it well." Handled it well. Not beautiful, not meaningful, just effective. Emily nods. That was the agreement. He studies her briefly, as if measuring something invisible, then looks away. Tomorrow morning, you will move into the penthouse. The staff has been informed. Your schedule will be managed by my assistant. She waits. There is always more. There will be separate bedrooms, he continues. Public events will be listed on a shared calendar. Outside of those obligations, we live separate lives. Emily exhales slowly. And privacy? You will have it, he says, as long as the contract is respected. The car stops. The penthouse rises above the city like a glass fortress. Inside, everything is pristine. Marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view that stretches for miles. It is beautiful in a way that feels untouchable. Emily follows him in, her footsteps quiet against the stone. A house manager greets them, warm and efficient, already treating her like she belongs. That part is the hardest. Everyone else believes this is real. Alexander gestures down the hallway. Your room is on the east side. Mine is on the west. A clear division, a clean line. Before she turns away, he adds, almost as an afterthought, You did not have to kiss me like that. Emily stops. She looks at him now, really looks at him. Not the billionaire, not the husband on paper, just a man who is afraid of something he refuses to name. It was part of the ceremony, she says quietly. That is not what I meant, he replies. For a moment, neither of them moves. The air hums with everything unsaid. Emily could explain. She could apologize. She could ask what that kiss meant to him. She does none of it. I will remember the distance, she says instead. You do not have to worry. Something flickers across his face. Relief, maybe, or regret. It is gone before she can be sure. That night, Emily lies awake in a bed that feels too large, staring at a ceiling she does not recognize. Her phone buzzes once. A message from the hospital. Her mother is stable. For now, she presses the phone to her chest, reminding herself why she is here. Across the penthouse, Alexander stands alone by the window, city lights reflected in his eyes. He loosens his tie, something he rarely does, and rests his hand against the glass. He tells himself the same thing he always has. This marriage is controlled. This marriage is safe. This marriage will not cost him anything. But when he closes his eyes, he does not see contracts or calendars. He remembers the kiss, and for the first time since the wedding began, Alexander Cole wonders if distance is truly something he can afford to keep. Morning arrives quietly in the penthouse. Sunlight spills through the glass walls, washing the city in pale gold. Emily wakes before the alarm, disoriented for a moment, then remembers where she is. The bed, the view, the silence that feels too expensive to belong to her. She dresses carefully, choosing neutral colors, nothing that draws attention. When she steps into the main living space, Alexander is already there. He stands at the long kitchen counter, jacket off, sleeves rolled neatly to his forearms, a tablet open beside a black leather folder. He looks rested, focused, back in control. Good morning, he says, without looking up. Good morning, Emily replies. A housekeeper leaves quietly, as if sensing this is not a moment meant for witnesses. Alexander gestures toward the dining table. Please sit, he says. We should formalize things, too. The leather folder slides across the polished surface and stops in front of her. The contract. Emily recognizes it instantly. She has read every page before, twice. Last night changed nothing, at least on paper. Alexander takes the seat across from her. His tone is calm, precise, the voice he uses in board meetings when decisions are final. This agreement protects both of us, he begins. It establishes boundaries and expectations. I want there to be no confusion. Do my Dane. Emily opens the folder slowly. Separate bedrooms, separate finances, public appearances only when scheduled. No emotional involvement, no interference in business matters. She pauses at one line. Physical contact limited to public obligations. She looks up. Including last night? Alexander does not hesitate. Yes. The word lands cleanly, like a stamp. Emily nods once and continues reading. She does not argue. She does not negotiate. That, more than anything, unsettles him. There will be events, he continues. Galas, charity dinners, shareholder meetings. You will be briefed before each one. You will not be expected to speak unless necessary. And if I am asked, she says, then you answer politely and defer, he replies. I will handle the rest. Emily closes the folder. For how long? She asks. Alexander meets her gaze. 2 years. After that, the marriage dissolves quietly. No scandal, no disputes. 2 years. She thinks of hospital corridors, of unpaid bills, of nights spent calculating how long hope could last. She reaches for the pen. Alexander watches her closely as she signs. There is no hesitation in her hand, no tremor. When she finishes, she slides the folder back toward him. I understand the terms, she says. I will follow them. Something tightens in his chest, though he does not show it. He signs his name beneath hers, sharp and controlled. The contract is complete. From that moment on, the days fall into a pattern. Emily learns the rhythm of Alexander's world. Mornings begin early. Meetings fill his schedule down to the minute. Assistants speak in low voices. Decisions are made quickly, efficiently, without room for emotion. She moves through it all quietly, observant, careful not to overstep. At their first public appearance, a charity luncheon downtown, she plays her role perfectly. She smiles when expected. She listens more than she speaks. When donors praise Alexander, she steps half a pace behind him, exactly where the cameras like her. Afterward, in the car, he nods once. You did well. It sounds like approval. It feels like distance. At night, they pass each other in hallways like polite strangers. A nod, a brief word, nothing more. But sometimes, when he thinks she is not looking, Alexander notices the way she studies the room before entering, as if measuring where she belongs. He notices how she thanks staff by name, how she never orders, only asks. And Emily notices things too. She notices how Alexander loosens his tie only when he is alone, how he stands at the window every night, looking out instead of in, how silence follows him, even in crowded rooms. Neither of them mentions the kiss again, yet it lingers, unwritten, unresolved. The contract says distance will keep them safe, but with every rule they follow, with every boundary they respect, the space between them begins to feel less like protection and more like a test. Neither of them is prepared to fail. The invitation arrives 3 days later. Emily finds it placed neatly on the kitchen counter, cream-colored cardstock with Alexander's company seal embossed in silver, a formal charity gala. Black tie, media confirmed. She reads it twice, then looks up to find Alexander standing near the window, already dressed for the day. You will need a stylist, he says calmly. The event matters. I can handle it, Emily replies. He turns, studying her for a brief second. This is not a small dinner. The board will be there. Investors, press. I understand, she says. I still can handle it. He nods, accepting the answer without argument. But later that afternoon, a team arrives anyway. They move through the penthouse with quiet efficiency. Dresses are unzipped, shoes are lined up, mirrors are positioned under perfect lighting. Emily stands in the center of it all, feeling more like a project than a person. When she finally steps out of the bedroom, the room falls silent. The dress is elegant but understated, deep navy instead of white, tailored to fit without screaming for attention. Her hair is swept back simply. No excessive jewelry, no attempt to compete. Alexander looks up from his phone. For a moment, he forgets what he was about to say. You look appropriate, he says finally. It is not a compliment, but it is not dismissal either. The gala is held downtown in a historic ballroom, all marble columns and golden light. The moment they enter, conversations shift. Eyes turn. Phones lift discreetly. Emily feels it immediately. The scrutiny, the comparisons, the unspoken question of how she ended up beside him. Alexander places a hand lightly at her back, guiding her forward. The touch is brief, professional, gone as soon as they stop walking. Stay close, he murmurs. Do not answer questions about us. About us, she nods. The night unfolds like a test she never signed up for. A woman from the board smiles thinly and asks Emily where she studied. Another guest compliments the dress, then asks who designed it, disappointment flashing when Emily answers honestly. A journalist leans in too close, fishing for a story. Emily handles each moment with quiet grace. She does not overshare. She does not shrink. She does not pretend to be someone else. When a donor makes a careless remark about luck, implying Emily married well rather than earned her place, she smiles politely and replies, luck does not keep hospitals funded. Commitment does. The conversation shifts. Alexander watches it all from the corner of his eye. This was not in the briefing. Later, during a presentation, A technical issue interrupts the program. Screens go dark. Murmurs ripple through the room. The organizer panics, whispering urgently to Alexander. Before he can respond, Emily steps forward. "There is a backup projector in the East Hall," she says quietly. "I saw it during setup. It just needs to be rerouted." The organizer blinks. "You are sure?" Emily nods. "I can show you." Within minutes, the presentation resumes. Applause follows, genuine this time. Alexander looks at her differently now. In the car ride home, the silence feels altered. "You were observant," he says at last. "I grew up fixing problems before they became emergencies," Emily replies. He considers that. At the penthouse, they walk inside together, slower than usual. For once, neither immediately turns away. "You handled yourself well tonight," Alexander says. "You did more than was required." Emily meets his gaze. "I did not break the contract." "No," he admits. "You did not." A pause stretches between them. For the first time since the wedding, the distance does not feel enforced. It feels chosen. And that realization unsettles him more than any scandal ever has. Emily turns toward her hallway. "Good night, Alexander." "Good night, Emily." She leaves. Alexander remains where he is, replaying the evening in his mind. The way she spoke, the way the room responded, the way she never once looked to him for rescue. He tells himself it changes nothing. But somewhere beneath the rules, beneath the contract, a quiet truth begins to surface. Emily Hart is not just fulfilling an obligation, she is earning her place. And that is far more dangerous than any mistake he planned to avoid. The shift does not announce itself. It arrives quietly, in the days that follow the gala, slipping into the spaces neither of them were watching. Emily's schedule grows fuller, not with luxury, but with responsibility. Alexander's assistant begins including her on briefings, not because the contract demands it, but because it makes things run smoother. Emily listens. She asks careful questions. She takes notes no one asked her to take. Alexander notices. Late one evening, she finds him alone in the study, jacket discarded over a chair, the glow of his laptop reflecting lines of fatigue on his face. Papers are spread across the desk, financial projections stacked beside a half-finished glass of water. "You skipped dinner," she says gently. He does not look up. "I was not hungry." She hesitates, then steps closer. "You say that when you are exhausted." That gets his attention. He looks at her now, really looks at her, as if surprised by the familiarity in her tone. "You are observant," he says. "So people keep telling me," she replies. She turns to leave, but he speaks again, stopping her without meaning to. "Stay." The word hangs in the air. Emily turns back. She does not smile. She does not misunderstand. She simply nods and takes a seat across from him, careful to leave space between them. Alexander rubs his temples. The board is pushing for an acquisition. It is risky. If it fails, it costs more than money. "Trust," Emily says quietly. He pauses. "Yes." She studies the documents. "Then why do it?" "Because fear makes people predictable," he answers, "and predictable opponents are easier to control." Emily considers that. "That sounds lonely." "Bye." The word lands harder than any accusation. Alexander exhales slowly. Loneliness is efficient. Emily does not argue. She just says, "It does not have to be." Silence settles between them, but it is different now. It is not avoidance. It is consideration. After a moment, Alexander closes the folder. "You should rest." "So should you," she replies. She stands, then stops. "For what it is worth, you handled the gala well too." He almost smiles. Days later, the first crack appears. A call comes in late at night. Emily answers to the sound of panic. The hospital. Her mother's condition has worsened. Tests are inconclusive. Decisions need to be made. Her hands shake as she ends the call. Alexander finds her in the living room, phone clutched to her chest, eyes distant. "What happened?" he asks. She hesitates. The contract says she does not owe him explanations, but something else answers for her. "My mother," she says. They are not sure what comes next. He does. Alexander nods once. No questions, no advice. "I will have a driver take you," he says. "I will come with you." "You do not have to," she replies quickly. "I know," he says. "I am choosing to." At the hospital, Alexander waits quietly while Emily speaks with doctors. He listens. He remembers names. He asks practical questions that ease the tension in the room. Emily notices. Later, They sit together in the waiting area, the harsh lights washing everything in grey. Emily finally lets herself breathe. "Thank you," she says. "You did not have to be here." "I did," he replies. "I just pretended for a long time that I did not." The words surprise them both. Emily looks at him, searching his face for distance, for retreat. It is not there. They sit like that for a long time, not touching, not crossing lines, but undeniably closer than the contract ever allowed. On the drive home, the city passing quietly outside, Alexander speaks without turning his head. "The distance," he says. "It was never about you." Emily nods. "I know." He glances at her then, something unguarded in his eyes. "And yet, you respected it." "Because I respect myself," she answers. "Not because I feared you." That night, when they part at the hallway, the space between them feels different. No longer a wall, more like a question. Neither of them crosses it, but both of them know now. This marriage may have started as a contract, but something real has begun to move beneath the rules, and neither of them is certain how long they can pretend not to feel it. The night after the hospital visit, sleep does not come easily. Emily lies awake, listening to the quiet hum of the penthouse, the distant city moving without her. Her mother's monitors still echo in her mind. The way Alexander stood beside her in the hallway does too, not as an obligation, not as a performance, as a choice. Across the penthouse, Alexander is awake as well. He stands on the rooftop terrace, the cool air pressing against his skin, the city stretched out beneath him in sharp lines of light. This is where he comes when control slips, when thoughts grow too loud to manage indoors. He hears the door behind him. Emily steps out slowly, a light sweater pulled around her shoulders. She hesitates when she sees him, then continues forward. "I could not sleep," she says softly. "Neither could I," he replies. They stand side by side, close enough to feel each other's presence, far enough to keep the rules intact. The city breathes below them, indifferent. After a long moment, Alexander speaks. "You should know something," he says, "about why I insisted on distance." Emily does not rush him. She waits. "My first serious relationship was not public," he continues. "I believed keeping it private would protect it. I was wrong. Well, he swallows. The pause is deliberate, controlled. "When the company went public, she became leverage. Investors questioned my judgment. Competitors fed rumors to the press. I watched someone I loved become a headline." Emily turns toward him now. "I chose the company," he says. "I told myself it was necessary, practical." She left a week later. The city lights blur slightly as he exhales. "I learned then that feelings make people vulnerable, and vulnerability is expensive." Tuela. Emily listens, her chest tight, her voice steady when she finally speaks. "You did not lose her because you loved her," she says. "You lost her because you were afraid to defend her." The words are not cruel, they are honest. Alexander closes his eyes. The truth lands where defenses cannot stop it. "I do not want to repeat that mistake," he says, "and I do not want to make you collateral damage." And, friends, for the Israeli, brided my 90s readies. Emily steps closer, not touching, but near enough that the space between them feels intentional. "You did not," she says. "You gave me clarity. That matters." He opens his eyes, surprised. "It does not make you angry. It makes me informed," she replies, "and it gives me a choice." Silence settles again, deeper now. "I chose this marriage for survival," Emily continues. "Not romance. I knew what I was agreeing to." Alexander studies her face, searching for resentment. He finds none. "And yet," he says quietly, "you keep showing up." "So do you," she answers. A breeze lifts her hair slightly. Instinctively, Alexander reaches out, then stops himself, hands suspended between them. He lets it fall. Emily notices. She does not fill the moment. She allows it to exist. "I will not cross your boundaries," she says, "but I will not pretend this does not matter either." He nods slowly. "That is what frightens me," he admits. "You do not demand. You do not manipulate. You simply exist." She smiles faintly. "I have learned that forcing people only teaches them how to leave." The honesty between them feels fragile, but real. After a while, Emily wraps her arms around herself. "I should go back inside." "Yes," he says. "You should." They walk toward the door together, steps unhurried. At the threshold, Emily stops. "For what it is worth," she says, "you are not weak for caring. You are just unused to being human without armor. Too harm. She leaves before he can respond. Alexander remains on the terrace long after the door closes. The city looks different now, less distant, less controlled. For years, he believed distance was discipline. Tonight, he understands something else. Distance is fear dressed as strategy, and for the first time since the contract was signed, Alexander Cole wonders if the greatest risk is not losing control. It is living a life where nothing is allowed close enough to matter. The first sign of trouble comes quietly. Emily notices it in the headlines, scrolling across Alexander's tablet one morning while he reviews market updates. A small article, buried, easy to miss. Cole Enterprises prepares for leadership consolidation amid questions of stability. Alexander dismisses it with a flick of his finger. Noise, he says. Someone is testing pressure points. Emily studies his face. Questions about what kind of stability? About me, he answers, and about us, too. Bright Frezet. We would not of them, in quote. The next move is not subtle. At a board meeting later that week, the atmosphere is different. Smiles are thinner. Questions linger longer than necessary. A senior board member, Richard Hale, clears his throat and leans back in his chair. Public perception matters, he says, and there are concerns about sudden changes in your personal life affecting judgment. Alexander remains composed. My personal life is not operational risk. Richard slides a tablet across the table. The screen shows photographs. Emily leaving the hospital late at night. Emily speaking with doctors. Emily holding paperwork outside a private wing. The implication is obvious. You married quickly, Richard continues, and now questions are circulating. About motives, about access. Emily feels the room tilt. Alexander's voice stays calm. My wife has no involvement in corporate decisions. Then why is she present during sensitive moments? Richard presses. Why is she being seen as anything other than a liability? The word hangs there. Liability. The meeting ends without resolution, but the damage is done. That evening, Alexander receives confirmation of what he already suspects. A formal inquiry. Quiet, internal, but real. A request to review governance safeguards. Emily finds him in the study, standing rigidly, phone clenched in his hand. What happened? She asks. He looks at her, and for the first time, she sees the wall rise fully back into place. They are questioning my judgment, he says, and your presence gives them ammunition. Her chest tightens. Because of the hospital? Because of proximity, he replies. Because feelings invite interpretation. Silence stretches between them. Emily understands before he finishes the thought. You want distance, she says softly. Yes, he answers. Too quickly. She nods once. Public distance or private? Both, he says. For now. The words hurt more than she expects. I did not ask to be involved, she says. I never crossed a line. I know, he replies. That is not the point. Then what is? She asks. He hesitates. Just long enough to tell her the truth without meaning to. That caring makes you vulnerable, he says. And I cannot afford vulnerability. The next day, the shift is visible. Emily's name is removed from briefings. Invitations arrive addressed to Alexander alone. At a press appearance, he stands without her, explaining her absence as scheduling conflict. The media speculates. Quietly at first, then louder. Emily reads the comments late at night, each one erasing her dignity piece by piece. She does not confront him. Instead, she packs a small bag. Alexander finds it by the door. What are you doing? He asks. Protecting what you are trying to protect, she replies. Your control. Be so. A very and this is not necessary, he says. It is, she answers, because you chose fear over honesty. He steps closer. I am trying to keep you safe. She meets his gaze. You are trying to keep yourself untouched. The truth stings. I will stay out of sight, she continues. I will not attend events. I will not give them more reason to question you. And after, he asks. She lifts her bag. After, I will remember who I had to become invisible for. 22. We're do. She walks past him, not angry, not dramatic, just resolved. That night, Alexander sits alone in the penthouse, the silence heavier than ever. The city still glows outside, indifferent. He got what he wanted. Distance. And for the first time, it feels less like strategy, and more like loss. Gala is unavoidable. The annual Founders Benefit is not just another event. It is the one night every year when the board, investors, press, and political donors gather in the same room. Attendance is not optional. Optics matter too much. Alexander stands in the private dressing room, staring at his reflection, adjusting his cufflinks for the third time. His assistant speaks carefully. The press is already asking if Mrs. Cole will attend. Alexander answers without turning. She will. The words surprise even him. Across town, Emily receives the call while sitting in a quiet hospital hallway. Her mother is asleep, stable, for now. Tonight? She asks. Yes, Alexander replies. His voice is controlled, but there is something beneath it she recognizes. Resolve, or fear. I thought distance was safer, she says. It was, he answers, until it was not. Emily closes her eyes briefly. She understands what this means. Showing up now is not performance. It is choice. I will come, she says, but only if we do this honestly. A pause. Agreed, Alexander says. The ballroom glows with light and expectation. When Alexander enters alone, murmurs ripple through the crowd. When Emily steps in beside him moments later, the room stills. She does not cling to his arm. She walks at his side. Equal pace, equal presence. Cameras flash, whispers follow. Richard Hale watches from across the room, unreadable. As the evening progresses, tension tightens. A donor approaches Alexander, voice too loud, smile too sharp. We were beginning to wonder if marriage was distracting you, the man says. But it seems you found a solution. Emily feels Alexander stiffen. Before he can respond, she speaks calmly. My presence is not a distraction, she says. It is a reflection. The man blinks. Of what? Of accountability, she replies. Something strong leadership requires. The conversation ends quickly. Later, Richard steps onto the stage. His announcement is polite, but deliberate. Tonight, he says, we reaffirm the values that built this company. Stability, discipline, and clarity of leadership. The implication is unmistakable. Alexander feels the moment close in around him. This is the test, the one he has been avoiding. He looks at Emily. She does not nod. She does not plead. She does not step back. She simply meets his gaze and waits. Alexander steps forward. Before we continue, he says into the microphone, voice steady, carrying across the room, I would like to clarify something. The room quiets. My marriage is not a liability, he continues. It is not a distraction, and it is not a weakness. Richard shifts uncomfortably. For years I believed distance was discipline, Alexander says. I believed control was safety. I was wrong. A murmur spreads. I married Emily Hart under a contract, he says plainly. But what she has shown me is integrity without condition, support without leverage, strength without demand. He turns to her. And tonight, I choose honesty over fear. Having 49. Emily's breath catches. Alexander reaches for her hand, not as protocol, not as performance, as a decision. The room holds its breath as he pulls her close. This kiss is nothing like the first. There is no hesitation, no calculation, no distance. When his lips meet hers, the applause is immediate, thunderous, but it fades behind the sound of her heartbeat, of his breath, of something breaking open instead of shutting down. When they part, Alexander rests his forehead briefly against hers. I cannot keep my distance anymore, he whispers. Emily does not smile. She does not cry. She says the only thing that matters. Then do not. Across the room, Richard lowers his gaze. The message is clear. The contract has lost its power, and in front of everyone who once questioned it, Alexander Cole has made the most dangerous move of his life. He has chosen love, not as weakness, but as leadership. The applause fades, but the decision does not. In the days that follow the gala, the story moves fast. Headlines change tone. Analysts adjust language. The quiet internal inquiry disappears without comment. Stability returns, not because fear was satisfied, but because clarity was finally chosen. Emily does not return to the shadows. She and Alexander walk into meetings together, not hand in hand, not staged, but aligned. When questions come, Alexander answers them directly. When assumptions surface, Emily meets them with calm confidence. There is no spectacle anymore, only truth. One evening, Alexander asks Emily to join him in the study. The leather folder lies on the desk between them, familiar, heavy with history. The contract, he says. It no longer serves a purpose. Emily looks at it for a long moment. When she speaks, her voice is steady. "It protected us when honesty felt dangerous," she says. "But it also kept us small." Alexander nods. He opens the folder, turns to the final page, and signs a termination clause with one clean stroke. Then he slides the pen toward her. Emily does not rush. She signs, then closes the folder herself. Silence settles, but it is not tense. It is complete. "I want you to choose this," Alexander says. "Not the life, not the security. Me." Emily meets his gaze. "I already did. The night you chose honesty in front of everyone who expected silence." "I get." He exhales, something loosening in his chest that no deal ever touched. Weeks later, the penthouse changes. Not in size, not in luxury, in warmth. Emily brings small things with her. Photos from the hospital room, a stack of books, a plant that thrives in morning light. The space becomes lived in, not displayed. Alexander learns to come home earlier, to ask questions without strategy, to sit beside her without calculating distance. They argue sometimes, about time, about boundaries, about fear, but they never negotiate love like a transaction again. On a quiet Sunday morning, they stand on the rooftop terrace together, coffee cooling in their hands. The city moves below them, familiar now, less imposing. "I used to think leadership meant never needing anyone," Alexander says. Emily smiles softly. "It usually means knowing when to stand alone and when to stand beside someone." He turns toward her. There is no wall left to hide behind. "I do not want distance," he says. "I want partnership." She steps closer, closing the space by choice. "And I want a man who chooses me, even when it costs him comfort," she replies. Alexander takes her hand. Months later, there is no press release, no grand announcement, just a quiet vow exchange in a small garden, surrounded by a few people who know the truth. No contracts, no clauses, no escape plans, only commitment. As they walk away together, Emily glances back once, at the life that began as survival. Alexander squeezes her hand gently. "What are you thinking?" he asks. She smiles. "That the distance you swore to keep," she says, "was never the danger." He nods, understanding fully now. The danger was never love. It was living a life where nothing was allowed close enough to change you. And together, they choose differently.